Welcome to the Get the Bag podcast, episode 19. We're on our way up. What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Claudia Castro. Got my co-host, Tim Park.
Hey, fam.
Uh, we living it up. I'm out here in Hawaii. Got the
Let's
beautiful
go.
backdrop. Got the little summer glow going. I'm feeling
Love it.
great.
What time is it out there?
It's 6 a.m.
6
But
a.m. She's
you know,
coming
I'm usually
early.
I am. But it's 9 a.m. as they call it in the mainland. That's what they say. Like, where do you live in the mainland? It's just weird to say I'm like LA. It's like, oh,
Right.
okay.
They're like,
But I've been getting up pretty early, actually, like 4 a.m. Hawaii
wow.
time. Because, I just don't want to, the time difference when I go back
Sure.
home. I don't want it to be all out of whack. But
Mm-hmm.
it's working so far. Some long days. But hey, if I get to spend more time out here in Hawaii doing that, I'd be more than happy doing that.
Love it.
But before we sort of get started, don't forget to like this episode, subscribe. We're on here every week. Set your reminders. It supports the algorithm, and we're obviously just spreading wealth. So wealth and knowledge, of course. So in today's episode, we're talking about collaboration between realtors and wholesalers. Maybe give a little history or sort of what our experience has been like, and then
Mm-hmm.
sort of what we recommend and based off our experience with that. I want to say in general, I remember when I got started in wholesaling, it was always like, watch out for realtors.
Mm-hmm.
They can be slimy or whatnot, but I'm sure realtors probably feel the same way about
Same.
wholesalers. Like, watch out for wholesalers;
Right.
they're slimy. I think there's just like anything, there's bad apples, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of gives you a different perspective. But we're all here trying to do the same thing, right? Which is make money, solve problems. And if you can do that together, you can make a lot of money together. I know a lot of people who just specifically just work with realtors
Mm-hmm.
and are making a lot of money, closing a lot of deals. So we're going to break that down. So to start off with, sort of, with along this topic is, tell me, Tim, sort of what your experience has been like in terms of how you reach out to realtors, or I know you've closed some deals working with realtors. Like, talk to us about that process from start to finish, from like starting that conversation, or do they reach out to you to actually closing a deal?
Yeah, I think it is an important aspect of wholesaling and vice versa for real estate agents to do business with wholesalers. And when both parties know the relationship and how they can benefit from each other, it's going to be beneficial for both parties, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, my at first I didn't work with realtors. That was kind of same thing with you, right? I thought they had our worst interest in mind and trying to sabotage deals and stuff like that. But as I started to network and tell more people and realtors what I do, they were more interested because they'd never heard of what we do, and how we
Right.
do it and how they can help or benefit, whether it's referral or they be a part of the deal or they have a buyer, right? So
Right.
there's different aspects of what value can a realtor bring, and then also what value you can bring to a realtor
Right.
as a wholesaler. So for
Right.
me, my experience has been pretty positive. Uh, excuse me, in the aspect of you know um, laying out the expectations in the relationship and what what we would like, and then how I can benefit them, and how can they benefit my business as well. So
Mm-hmm.
once I lay that foundation, I think these deals have fallen in place, and there's both an equal understanding on how the deal will work, and they're comfortable working with me just because I've explained everything to them. Because first thing they're going to do is ask their broker. You're like, that's usually what happens.
Right. And that's
You
something
know,
you don't really think about, like, is
yeah,
understanding the hierarchy or, how
right.
brokerages work and um, commissions. Like, typically, right, like whatever commission realtors make, they have to split, and each brokerage is set up differently from what I
Different, yeah.
understand.
And it is,
Uh,
and,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say there's a lot of from what I've learned, there's a lot of education on both ends too, right? Like understanding realtors and like what their process is, and then uh, also educating realtors on like, hey, this is how it works. Like we were just talking about last week, right? How you connected with Chase, who's a realtor out in Houston, on
Mhm,
understanding like she would have thrown that deal away. It would have been a dead deal for her, but understanding like no, you can still make money by wholesaling it, and this is what that process looks like. It opened her eyes, and she talked about that when we interviewed her months ago
mhm,
about like now it's like wheels are turning. It's like mind blown of like wow, I've been missing out on a ton of money because I just didn't know. I know what I don't know. So I think there's a big aspect of education and like you said, adding value. Uh, because there's going to be those misconceptions of working with
sure.
wholesalers because there are those dirty wholesalers out there that just don't make it easy for us. But I think if you really come from you know integrity and just adding value, I mean you can do this with not just residential but commercial. Like we've collaborated with realtors on commercial deals that have come up, right, on like how you split the commission or how you split like the
Mhm,
verbiage you use. So there's like you can be as creative as you want, and so it's just kind of opening up their mind and educating them on
yeah.
what that looks like.
I saw a TikTok with Glenda Baker. She's a famous realtor. She's investor as well too, and she had a video saying that she works with wholesalers, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think then her next example was how wholesalers work, and they go after grandma and take their equity, and
Mm, hmm.
and take more, doesn't give the full value of the house to them. And my rebuttal to that would just be that like each wholesaler is going to be different on that, and just like a realtor, they might take advantage of someone else, like you had said. And
Hmm.
with our business, we always present ourselves with integrity and full transparency with like the sellers, because the money will always be there for us, and that's, I think, the mentality that we take. And
Hmm.
you even closed a deal without making any money, right? And that
Right,
was
right, I was gonna say that.
right.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's like um we're we're not always there to like get the most money as we can. It's more about how we're going to help the seller, and if
And
that
solve
means,
problems.
yeah, solve problems for the seller, right? And we know that we're going to make money during this process, yes, but I think a lot of it is uh, people don't understand when they're in the trenches and doing wholesaling on a daily basis, how many problems we actually solve with people in despair on how to
Hmm.
get out of their situation with their house.
Right. I mean, we've talked about, there's some deals out in LA that we're working on where it's like, you're dealing with tenants and it's
Right.
like, oh, okay, we kind of know what to expect, like a cash for keys, because a lot of the investors don't want to inherit or acquire a property with tenants in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there's always a problem to solve. If you're the more problems you solve, I always feel like the more money you make.
Yeah.
Um, but there is a problem going on right now, right? With like the market shifting and the
Sure.
market conditions. And so realtors should really, really start changing their mindset of like, how can I make more money? And I think that's one thing we've also talked about is like realtors typically don't have that investment or investor mindset, which is
Mm-hmm.
completely different. And that's really what's needed to adjust to what the changes that are happening now. There's a lot of changes where eventually maybe realtors won't even exist. So what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to
Mm-hmm.
pivot? So I think it's really important to start that collaboration now, start networking. I mean, we know plenty of wholesalers who work with realtors to just get MLS access. to like
Mm-hmm.
get the best comps or reach out to buyers or whatever the case may be. So that's our collaboration. Like it's a start of that and seeing how you work together.
Mm-hmm.
Your realtor can be the boots on the ground. Like I know, plenty of people that also do that where it's like, hey, I'll just, pay them a little something just to show the properties to the buyers or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So there's you from a realtor's perspective, you're expanding your deal opportunity by working with wholesalers. And not only that, but there's also a faster turnaround with
Mm-hmm.
typical wholesaling deals. I mean, not every deal is created equal, but typically like a general deal, maybe 30 days. Whereas, when you're listing something, it may take, especially now in this market, it's
Yeah.
taking what, 60 plus days. I see some that
Right.
are like 100 plus
And
days.
yeah.
So you got to wait for that commission to come in. That shit takes time. And so if you can work on a deal and close in 30 days and split a fee or, add your commission on top, if you're bringing a buyer, I mean, that like, who would say no to that? But surprisingly, not many realtors think like that, right?
Yeah. Right.
I think I was having a conversation with Chuck, who is out. Shout out to Chuck, by the way.
Hey,
That's my
shout out to
guy.
Chuck.
We were talking because he's out in the Florida market, and so he talks to realtors all the time. With he specifically does vacant lots, and he was telling me how he has these conversations with realtors who been doing this for 30 plus years maybe, and those are always the most difficult ones to
Mm-hmm.
kind of turn around. There's some that are super open-minded, but there's some where you really have to educate on like, okay, this is an assignment, this is what we did, yes, it is legal, here's my title company's information. But he has these conversations, and one of them of adding value is saying like, hey, you can make more money doing this way.
Mm-hmm.
And the realtor was just not with it. She was just like, no, it just doesn't make sense. And he's like, and he had to clarify. So you're telling me that you're not okay with making more money?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, yes.
Wow.
Because
Wow.
I'm not like, I don't, understand this. Those are the kind of people that are going to be left behind.
Yeah.
Like clearly.
It's funny that you mentioned that story because I think I've talked to several realtors as well, and some of them have said that's too much work. Like, and I
Yeah,
was like,
it is
well,
a
they
lot
did,
of work.
yeah. And it seems complicated, or it's, it doesn't make sense. And after I walked them through like the steps, and so it's funny because they've been trained, I guess, on one way to kind of do a real estate transaction,
Hmm.
whereas a real estate investor has many ways to kind of close a deal and is educated on different
The
aspects with
strategies.
yeah, strategies, exactly. And when and I think if the realtor kind of expanded their, like you said, tool belt to incorporate what an investor may look for or different strategies an investor may do, that will open up a whole new revenue stream for them to get them closed, right? So I think
Hmm.
you're absolutely right on that, example.
Yeah, and I think there are those realtors or brokerages that are catching on and understand, um, the importance of adapting. Like, I, I think, yeah, I was having a conversation where it's like, yeah, I don't know if realtors will exist next 5 or 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's just so many tools out there where you don't really need a realtor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so those people who are stuck in their old ways, they're the ones who are going to be left behind. But definitely give those props to those investor friendly realtors or investor minded realtors who
Mm-hmm.
are actually doing it, who actually wholesale, include like wholesaling or these different sort of strategies in their business. I think those are the ones the ones that are adapting right now are the ones who are going to be way ahead.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to have that have these sort of conversations, because realtors for the most part, like I feel like with wholesalers, when you're entering a new market, like connecting with the realtor is really key because they should know their market really well,
Mm-hmm.
and understand like, okay, these neighborhoods, the dynamics, um, the market insights, and vice versa, maybe even too. Like there may be some aspects that the wholesalers know because they're the ones going direct to seller,
Mm-hmm.
that could really help the help the realtor in many
Right.
aspects. So, it's just really, I mean, this really isn't rocket science. It's really straightforward. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
limiting belief that is set, whether it be from wholesalers or from realtors. Like anywhere where you collaborate with more people, it just makes the most sense.
Right.
But I was thinking, Tim, maybe we can kind of break down like a deal. Maybe, I mean, we can talk about commercial and residential on like how you've collaborated with realtors, brokers, and like how you've kind of like written up a deal, or like what does that look like um in like running a transaction.
Yeah. I think I've done several type of deals with realtors. One being a referral based, another being they were part of the transaction because it was something that they had brought the buyer in, and they weren't
Hmm.
licensed in that state, so they were going to try to get a
Mm,
referral off of that, and I
hmm.
kind of guided them on how they could do it from out of state and still get a big chunk of a fee for that. So instead of making like 5,000, they made 20,000 or whatever the case may be, right?
Right.
So I think each deal is going to be structured differently, and each situation with the realtor is going to be different. So I think with my last one, I kind of JV'd with them because they had already had the buyer, and then and the split wasn't 50-50. I just felt like I was just kind of guiding them on what to do. They did all the work, and they wanted to kind of learn how that worked, and so it was almost like a 60-40 split instead of a 50-50 split. So, and
Right.
I the only thing I did was kind of help the negotiation process and talk to the
Hmm.
listing agent, and basically that was it. And from there, it was just kind of guiding them on what do you do next, and communication with that, because they were kind of a new realtor, so that was
Mm,
something that was very unique to that circumstance.
right.
In commercial, it's a little bit different because you have to deal with brokers almost
Right.
all the time. So the
Hmm.
communication there has to be upfront, and what's their initial commission if they
And if they're
were.
okay with splitting too.
Exactly, exactly. And so they'll ask you, what's your relationship, and you just say you represent the buyer, and you have a group of investors or whatever the case may be, just like how you do kind of in residential a little bit. But um, so I think actively in commercial, you have to network, and that's big. And the deal's going to be structured where it's commonplace to split the commissions on a commercial deal, right?
Right.
There's a lot more flexibility in commercial, like being a part of, ownership and all of that as well, depending on the relationship with the investor. But it all comes down to the relationship that you have with different brokers that bring you different deals. So a lot of especially in commercial, it's basically who you know, and they'll send you off market deals. You can do that in residential, but a lot of the real estate agents just send you pocket listings, not kind of real like off
Off
market
market.
deals.
Well, it's also like
Um,
their client base too, right? Like
yeah,
where typically in commercial, most investors have a broker that they've established relationship for years, right? Where it's like, hey, I want to work with you only. I'm only going to sell with you, and is perfectly fine with paying them a commission. Um, so in that aspect, it's a little bit different. Whereas typically, I mean, residential, I mean, if you have a large portfolio, they may have
mhm,
a establish a relationship with a realtor or broker, who manages, or who knows. So a lot of times in commercial, that's where it's like those, they are straight like off market, where it's like, if you've established that relationship, and
mhm.
the seller tells the broker like, hey, I want to sell, um, and it's like, oh, I have somebody in mind, and like reaches out to Tim, and Tim is like, yeah, sure, like how. and especially if you've established a relationship, you guys already kind of know the commission split on like, it's 1 point, 2 point, whatever.
Mhm.
But if it's like a pretty good deal, like another way to add value is telling the listing agent or broker, whatever, it's like, hey, we'll split both ways, right, on the buyer and
Mhm.
seller side. Um, so there's ways where it's like, hey, it's three
Yeah.
points. Let's split the 3 points in half on the seller side, and on the buyer side, let's split, 1 or 2 points, and
Mhm.
you guys can both walk away making a lot of money that way. So it's all collaboration, but at the
Yeah.
same time, there are those realtors, like there are wholesalers that will do you dirty, that will just backdoor you.
Yeah.
Like I think we were talking about a deal that you were working on where I think it was the buyer that wanted to backdoor the realtor
Yeah.
or the broker,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it goes both ways, just having that transparent conversation, those tough conversations on like what the commission split. Because when it comes down to money, that's where people get really weird.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things that you can do to kind of make it work. Like, you if they're willing to do that and the price isn't right, you can take some of, like, use the commission as a pay down to get the number right, but the buyer is willing to pay you an extra commission for that, right? So
Right, right.
it kind of just works out in a way, just so they don't pay the full purchase price of that actual property, where they can get you a commission maybe after the fact or during closing. But you know, I, there's so many ways just to kind of work it, and just
Yeah,
understanding that, and not being, even as a wholesaler, you can't be single-minded. Just like
right.
these other real estate agents that are single-minded to do a deal, you have to be open to, collaborating like we were talking about today, and going out and networking and seeing how you could work together on it. And if it's, I'm just going to say, if they're not understanding, just move on from that realtor. There's going to be another realtor that's going to understand. Or if you truly want to build a relationship with that realtor, then you need to, find one that actually understands and is willing to put in the work for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I mean, the biggest thing is also like creating partnerships too. Like I
Hmm.
know people who partner up with realtors all the time on wholesale deals, novations even, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I got this deal, can list it for me, or hey, just list it and I'll take care of everything else, and I'll pay
Hmm.
you, a flat fee or something along those lines. So
Right.
there's just so many ways you can get paid. It's just understanding the process, being open minded,
Hmm.
and on the residential side, it's I mean it's pretty straightforward. I mean that's kind of the biggest thing now with tools like Privy that we've talked about, right? On like on
Hmm.
market deals and offering wholesale fees because properties are literally sitting on the market for a long time,
Hmm.
and you can work with a realtor, especially if you have like a buyer in mind. And close the deal that way as well. Or again, if you have something under contract and you can network with realtors or brokers and be like, hey, I have this deal. Do you have a buyer? Just add your fee on top of the assignment fee
Hmm.
and you're good, or the total purchase price.
Right.
So there's many ways, and you just kind of add a verbiage of like in the assignment contract, just saying this person will get their commission paid by buyer, and it's really easy. That's the problem. I think it's like we just overcomplicate so many things
Yeah.
because simple concepts just go over people's heads and
Mhm.
they just overcomplicate it. So it's unfortunate. It's like it's that way. But like I said, the people who understand it are the ones that are going to be way like far ahead of the
Yeah,
people who don't, who are
yeah,
going to be left behind.
yeah. A majority of the real estate agents I work with, they have cash buyers, so, um,
Exactly.
they
And access to the
have,
MLS. Like,
exactly,
you know what I mean?
exactly,
Yeah.
and then I can ask them, "Hey, do a comp real quick on this," or whatever in the case may be, and they'll
Or
do a
putting an
comp.
offer for me.
Yeah.
Like this is where again, a tool like Privy, uh, where you can, I mean, you have all the information there of the listing, reaching out to the listing agent and be like, um, hey, make an offer on for me, or on behalf for me,
Mhm.
of me, at this price. You can represent me, or whatever the case may be. Um, uh, and close deals that way. That's like a lot of people are doing that right now, with how the market's going, and making a lot of money doing it that
Mm.
way. So um, it's again on the wholesalers is also adjusting too with like what's happening. You can't just stick, like you're saying, stick to one strategy of just wholesaling. You have
Right.
to be able to offer different options, like creative finance,
Mhm.
novations,
Mhm.
wholetailing. Like there's just so many aspects of it, even on the residential side, um, that as a wholesaler, you have to be open minded as well, in collaborating with realtors and or anybody really.
Yeah. And there's so many. I think there's less realtors now, but more realtors than wholesalers, I think, maybe. So I think,
Yeah, I saw that stat, I think.
yeah. So it's a situation where utilize some of their knowledge, for sure, and work together on closing more deals. And I think that's important, just to add more to their tool belt as you're adding more to your tool belt. And I think that's very crucial in sustaining consistent deals and, more revenue or money coming into your business.
Absolutely. Well, I know we're approaching the half hour mark, but I think this is such an important conversation. So if you are a
Hmm.
wholesaler and haven't been networking with realtors, you're definitely missing out. That's one thing I've
Hmm.
really been targeting. Um, like, and I think it really starts with networking and having these conversations. So being really
Yeah.
intentional with the people you speak with, people you network with. Um, Again, like I just learned of a Zillow hack that's really straightforward, where you can filter out keywords in Zillow and just put in
Hmm.
like realtor, or not realtor, but like investors, and you can reach out to the buyer's agent or whatever, and just have conversations like, hey, I'm in this market looking for deals, or whatever it is. I come across a ton
Hmm.
of deals. Would your buyer be interested? Like, there's so many ways where you could access realtors. There's LinkedIn, there's Twitter. Like I've found agents through that way, where I just reach out to brokers as well and
Hmm.
introduce myself. And going to events, like the last
Yeah.
event I went in Vegas, I connected with an LA broker, and we met up for coffee. So you want to go on as many coffee dates as possible.
Hmm.
Like that's kind of
Yeah.
like introducing yourself, kind of showcasing what you can do. And like for me, it was just like he was very curious about the wholesaling process and was like, I can see us working together. Like I come across these expired listings. Like
Hmm.
here, let's. Is there something you can work out? Or hey, I have access to a ton of buyers. If you get something under contract, send it my way,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of thing. So it's not very complicated to access realtors. It's just starting that conversation,
Hmm.
and just sort of saying like, hey, I'm an investor in this area. I come across a ton of deals. I'd love to work together. Or
Right.
have you worked with assignments, or whatever it is, like just having a candid conversation. um Nobody, like, I'm just saying, people who actually say no to money is crazy to me. Like we talk about this all the time in Chris's group on like JVing. It's like, if I'm bringing Tim a deal, why would he say no if it makes sense, right? If the numbers add up and he has
100%.
access to a buyer. If a wholesaler is reaching out to a realtor saying how they can make more money, and you're declining, like that tells a lot about yourself,
Yeah.
is all
Yeah.
I'm saying. So we'll leave it there, unless something you wanted to add, Tim.
No, I think you nailed it, I think. And I think this is a great conversation always. So if you're a realtor out there or you're a wholesaler trying to contact realtors, contact us. We have tons of information on how you do that or ways to do that. If you're a realtor that wants to learn more about wholesaling and how we can help you generate more business, contact us anytime, and we can kind of walk you through our process and how we can work together on generating more leads as well, and close more deals. So, but I don't want to
Absolutely.
take G from her vacation anymore,
This is cool. This is nice.
So
I'd love
working,
to do a podcast from Hawaii all day.
hey,
Like
turn into a
I'd be
business
here.
trip. Yep.
So I'm saying, like, talking about development and like real estate, like the real estate out here is crazy. All the new development and new
Mm-hmm.
builds, and
Have you seen
it's
any stuff? Have you
oh
been
yeah,
by some stuff? Oh, nice.
yeah.
Nice.
Like just driving on the highway, I see a ton of like new construction homes, new buildings. Like just yesterday, I went to this brand new like restaurant, like surf, like kind of community
Mm-hmm.
or member. I don't know. It's like a, you know, you have your golf communities or
Right.
golf courses, um, golf clubs, I should say. Like it was like a surf club where you like walk in there. It's, you can tell it's like a newly developed. I think they've been open for a month. Sits alongside the beach. You have like a surf, you know, those like surfing rides or something where you can
Mm-hmm.
like actually like get on. They have one of those. They
Oh,
have a
that's
restaurant
dope.
at the top. They have surf shops. So that's like a new develop. Somebody thought of the idea of like, oh, this is kind of like a surf town or whatever. Let's
Mm-hmm.
build this out. So it's pretty genius.
It's
So
almost
like
like
those kind of
Top
stuff.
Golf for surfing.
Exactly. We were walking. It's funny. We were pulling up and we're like, this looks like Top Golf. Like just like the way it's like kind of
Right.
measured out. And then we're like, there should be a Top Golf out here, in this, at least this area. But that's just somebody again who developed the idea, right? Who's probably like, oh, there's a ton of land here. Let's develop this. You know, you just look at real estate a lot different once you're kind
Yeah.
of exposed to it. But it's everywhere, for sure. So it's like really cool to kind of see that perspective and you know, closing more deals so I can come out here more.
Hey,
That's kind of
watch.
the goal.
G will come back with some Hawaii deals before her trips
Shit.
end. Yeah, so
That'd be amazing. That would be great. I mean, I need to get work. I need to hit up some realtors right now.
there you
Like I need
go.
to hit up
There
some
you go.
brokers and be like, yo, what's up? Because I know wholesaling out here is pretty big too, from what
Mm,
I hear.
yeah, from what I hear
But
too.
yeah, so no, it's definitely a lovely, if you guys ever get a chance to do that, for sure, uh, do that. But homework for you guys again for a lot of the wholesalers, like reach out to those realtors, Zillow, Privy if you have access to it, LinkedIn, Twitter, like hit up some realtor events, like introduce
Hmm.
your like, you know, put yourself out there. You'll kind of see a difference in terms of your deal flow. But really appreciate you guys joining in. We'll be back next Wednesday, regular time, 8 a.m.
Yep.
Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. We actually have a guest. We have one of my old high school classmates,
Awesome.
who is in tech sales. So we're going to talk about really getting people of color into tech. So
Mm,
this is a whole different aspect, but it is relatable because we're talking sales. So you don't want to miss that. There's a lot of money that can be made in tech specifically. You know, if you're good on the phones, you can make tons of money. I mean, I know people making $500,000 just through that alone. So don't want to miss that at all. But appreciate you guys again. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch y'all next week.
all right. See y'all. Peace.